This time, it really is as bad as it looks. And if this is allowed to happen in the UK, you can bet it's only a matter of time, and not much time, before it's happening in Australia, Canada and everywhere else in the Commonwealth too. Kier Starmer has announced a mandatory digital ID called the Brit Card for anyone working in the United Kingdom. And even just the tone of his announcement was ominous. Even he knows that what he is doing is evil. Watch.
Today, I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
Kier Starmer is playing God. The breathtaking arrogance, making a human right the right to work, subject to government identification. Klaus Schwab himself would be proud. This is it. The line has been crossed. I adopted the slogan, "Good people break bad laws," during the COVID lockdowns in Melbourne, Australia, as we fought for the right to live and work during those dark years. And I strongly believe that a mandatory digital ID as a condition of working is a very bad law that good people have an obligation to break. The fight against a digital ID is the fight for freedom in our time, because a digital ID is just the foundation of a future digital prison. And you can bet that if Kier Starmer gets his way, then it won't be long before a personal carbon tracker is attached to your digital ID. What is a personal carbon tracker? Hear it from the president of the Alibaba Group when he spoke in 2022 at the World Economic Forum.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
Why am I linking Kier Starmer's digital ID announcement with a seemingly unrelated carbon tracker being developed by Alibaba and used in China? Because appearances can be deceiving, and these are not unrelated. This video is a hell of a rabbit hole, and I'm going to name names, join the dots, and paint you the clearest picture possible of what's going on here and what's at stake. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you 3 key precautions you need to start taking immediately. So you'd better strap in, because the COVID lockdowns that caused so much unrest in my home city of Melbourne, Australia, and around the world, as well as things like Sadiq Khan's ultra-low emissions zones in London, which led to the Blade Runner movement in the UK, these were just dress rehearsals. This right now is the real thing, and the UK needs to get active and fast, because Kier Starmer is using the immigration crisis in the UK as a Trojan horse, a wedge to divide opposition and ram through a digital ID whether you like it or not. My name's Topher, and this is the Topher Project, and this is what I do. No nonsense, just the facts that you need to know, combined with the perspective that helps you to make sense of it all and to know what to do about it, which I will get to at the end of this video. I am 100% viewer supported. I'm not here to advertise some crypto exchange or VPN or bullion dealer with a unique code for a 5% discount. Now, it's not that I never would do that. I'm not ideologically opposed to it, and I'm not having a go at the other commentators who do that. But I think it's better for us all if I stay completely independent, so you know that you can trust what I have to say. I'm not some fear-mongering salesman posting clickbait for a commission. I rely on you guys, and you can help me to keep the Topher Project going by buying me a coffee via the button at topherfield.net. But what I will tell you about, because it is particularly relevant to this topic, is my best-selling books about government, power, human rights, and civil disobedience, titled Good People Break Bad Laws. This digital ID announcement from Kier Starmer kicks off the next round in our ongoing fight for freedom in our generation, and is absolutely confirmation that civil disobedience is a very relevant topic for our times. Now, my first best-selling book, Good People Break Bad Laws, this is all about civil disobedience in the modern age, and it draws on history, political philosophy, and also my own personal experiences when I was on the front lines of the pushback against COVID tyranny in Melbourne, Australia. There's also my second, also best-selling book. It's Good Christians Break Bad Laws. This is about the theology of civil disobedience and why I believe, contrary to many others, that the Bible teaches that Christians should be among the first to stand up peacefully, but firmly and without compromise, against civil governments who overstep their God-given authority and try to take the place of God in our lives. Both books are available on Amazon for those who don't want to pay the shipping from Australia, but if you're in Australia or if you're just happy to pay the shipping, then you can get my books, plus my multi-award winning documentary Battleground Melbourne, which is all about the incredible people who led a movement of civil disobedience against our petty tyrant back at home, Premier Daniel Andrews, during the COVID lockdowns. Plus, you'll also find my t-shirts, my hoodies, and all of that is at goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. Okay, so that's how you can support me if you'd like to, but let's get back to what Kier Starmer is doing and why. It's no coincidence that Kier Starmer made this digital ID announcement at the Global Progress Action Summit, which was attended by a who's who of globalist suck-ups, including the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, Canadian Prime Minister and staunch globalist Mark Carney, as well as former New Zealand Prime Minister and COVID tyrant Jacinda Ardern, among many others. These are the people that the World Economic Forum leader Klaus Schwab was talking about a few years ago when he said that the WEF trained young global leaders and that they had penetrated the cabinets of countries around the world. Watch this video, and as you watch, keep in mind that he said this back in 2017, and the World Economic Forum has dramatically increased its reach since then.
Yes, actually, this notion to integrate young leaders is part of the World Economic Forum since many years. And I have to say, when I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, so that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
And that's true in Argentina too. Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now. I'm with the president.
Again, that was 2017. The French president he speaks of was the newly elected Emmanuel Macron. The Argentine cabinet that he spoke of was the socialist government that destroyed Argentina before Javier Milei was more recently elected to try and fix it. And at the time, the Canadian Prime Minister was World Economic Forum Young Global Leader alumni Justin Trudeau. Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand lockdown queen, who famously said that her government would be your single source of truth. That's an exact quote. And who attended the summit in London where this digital ID was announced, is also famously an alumni of that exact World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders program, class of 2014, if you're interested. And Mark Carney and Kier Starmer have both had significant involvement with the WEF, speaking at Davos and publicly supporting the World Economic Forum's aims and agendas. Now, interestingly, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is something of an exception in this group, having had no substantial involvement with the WEF. But that's likely because, as he loves to remind us, he grew up on the wrong side of the tracks with a single mum in commission housing, and no one expected such a midwit from humble beginnings to ever get so far in life as to be the Prime Minister. But it's also clear that Albo is now working very hard to catch up, to get in with the Davos crowd, hence why he is attending this progressive action event. We've entered an era where prime ministers are being groomed to be globalists for years or even decades before they achieve power, and an age where being the leader of a country is no longer regarded as the pinnacle of someone's career. Far from it. It's now viewed as a stepping stone. It's an audition, or a job interview if you like, towards bigger things on the global stage after politics. The global stage being the UN or the World Economic Forum or other globalist organisations. That's why we're seeing so many prime ministers and presidents so aggressively pursuing the World Economic Forum's objectives and agendas. Because that's how they carry favour and get in with that crowd, so they can land those lucrative and powerful positions in globalist organisations when they leave domestic politics. Now, we saw an early version of that in our own former Prime Minister in Australia, Kevin Rudd, who pandered to the Chinese and to the globalists when he was the Australian Prime Minister, and then he made a bid to become the UN Secretary-General soon after he was deposed as Prime Minister. It was the then new Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, who then vetoed Kevin Rudd's bid to become the UN Secretary-General, one of the most powerful people on Earth. It's kind of ironic that it was Turnbull who stopped him, because I would say that Turnbull was doing the same exact thing as what Rudd did, using his time as Prime Minister of Australia to curry favour with the globalists. In his case, he was currying favour with the big financial interests to feather his nest for his post-politics career. This is a global trend that is only strengthened with time. And this is why we see the likes of Jacinda Ardern still hanging around in these circles, post-politics, hoping to pick up some crumbs of a globalist career. It's also why Anthony Albanese and Kier Starmer are trying to ram World Economic Forum policies down our throats, even though we never asked or voted for them. They're not governing for us. They're governing for the World Economic Forum in the hope of having a lucrative future globalist career. Okay, with that in mind, let's get back to this digital ID announcement. The digital ID is an essential first step towards a social credit system like what's already in place in China and is being aggressively introduced in Vietnam right now. A social credit system is basically the nudge theory on steroids, where your government will reward you for doing the things they deem to be good and punish you for doing the things they deem to be bad. In China, it's linked to your social media accounts, your spending habits, and even linked to who you hang out with. Spending time with people who have a low social credit score will also hurt your social credit score. In China, they use it to restrict travel, ban people from social media and public positions, and impose financial penalties on people who express the wrong opinions online. Now, before you say that would never happen in the UK, let's remind ourselves that the UK are already putting people in prison for what they say on the internet. So in that context, a social credit score system doesn't seem all that outlandish, and I can tell you it is absolutely 100% on their list of things to do. But they need a universal digital ID first. But I don't think they're actually going to create a system that is identical to the one that's being used in China. That would be too obvious, and the people of the UK would probably push back too hard. I think they're going to do it in the name of saving the world from climate change, i.e., their version of a credit score, which will be a digital prison, will be your personal carbon score, i.e. exactly what J. Michael Evans, the president of Alibaba, said in the World Economic Forum in 2022, per that clip that I played you earlier in this video. Now, why does he matter? Well, he matters because the Alibaba Group are the people behind much of China's social credit system. And in the 3 years since that speech at the World Economic Forum, they've continued their work on their personal carbon tracker in various forms, called the Carbon 88 Carbon Ledger or the Energy Expert Platform. And the Alibaba Group are rolling out carbon footprint labeling across their enormous e-commerce platform as part of their commitment to ESG. That's the very innocent sounding but very, very dangerous Environment, Sustainability and Governance program, which is being used to co-opt corporations around the world for a woke globalist agenda. For those of you that have been following this stuff for a while, you won't be surprised to learn that major shareholders of the Alibaba Group include BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, all of whom make pursuing ESG a high priority in the companies that they buy shares into, and de facto they take control of. A digital ID is the beginning of a digital prison. With a digital ID and a personal carbon tracker, they won't need to actually lock you down into a 15-minute city. They'll lock you down using carbon credits and rationing so that you can't travel far, or eat much of what they don't approve of, or say things that they don't like online. Or in time, you won't even be able to hang out with other people who might be on their naughty list. Kier Starmer's digital ID announcement is a red line that the UK must not cross. Kier Starmer knows that the people of the UK didn't vote for it and don't want it, which is why he's packaging it as a way to fight illegal immigration. He personally posted to X that, "I know you're worried about the level of illegal migration into this country. Digital ID is another measure to make it tougher to work illegally here, making our borders more secure." That's a lie, of course. Fixing immigration is a Trojan horse for the digital ID. It's what's known in politics as a wedge, something to split your opposition with. And if you really want to be conspiratorial about it, then you might begin to wonder whether this play, this false promise of fixing immigration with a digital ID, might perhaps be the entire reason why they allowed migration in the UK to become such a massive issue in the first place. The challenge you have in the UK is that it's potentially another 4 years before the next general election. And whilst Reform UK is doing really well in the polls, that doesn't mean anything until there is an election. And Kier Starmer made it clear in that announcement that he's going to have this digital ID in place during this government, i.e. he is not going to let the people of the UK have a say at the polls before he rams it through. He's going to push it down your throats as fast as he can so that you don't get the chance to say no. Okay, so that's the situation. This is real. This is serious. And if Kier Starmer gets his way, then the UK will never be the same again. So what do we do about it? Not just in the UK, but everywhere. Because you can bet that Anthony Albanese and Mark Carney and all the other world leaders are taking notes right now, copying Kier Starmer's homework. There's a few things we must do, in my opinion, as a matter of urgency. The protests that we've already seen in the UK are about to get massive, and I mean so much bigger. I suggest you join them if you haven't already, but always focus on peaceful protest and actively work to stop any violence or troublemakers or plants that you may come across. In moments like this, there are people who unfortunately want to turn a conflict like this into a violent confrontation. But that is a pathway to government crackdowns, martial law, and from there things get very ugly. Protest, yes, firmly and uncompromisingly, but don't start any violence. The state loves it when the people get violent because the state knows exactly what to do in response, because violence is a language that governments speak fluently. So join the protests, but be careful. But perhaps more important than the protests is what you should do individually and as a family to prepare yourself to be able to live and work and earn and eat over the next few years, no matter what Kier Starmer may do. First, get yourself set up so that you can make and receive payments in crypto. Now, like I said, I'm not going to shill for an exchange or give you a promo code or anything like that. You need to work this out for yourself. There's plenty of information online. But the power of a distributed cryptocurrency is that no one can say no to a transaction, and no one can confiscate your money as long as it's in a secure wallet. We saw what happened during the trucker protests in Canada, when Justin Trudeau cracked down on people who sent financial support to the truckers by confiscating their bank accounts, shutting them down. The people of Canada then turned to Bitcoin because the government couldn't stop them from doing transactions in Bitcoin. I saw the same thing personally when I was in Venezuela in 2015. Their currency at the time was collapsing, and the government had placed strict banking and currency controls so that people had a hard time getting US dollars or anything other than the worthless Venezuelan bolivar. So what did the people do? Well, I was told while I was there that at that point in time, Venezuela had the highest per capita usage of Bitcoin. And I met people who ran their entire businesses and lives on Bitcoin, taking payments, paying staff, paying their rent on their buildings, and even buying their groceries, all in Bitcoin, because the government couldn't stop them. And instead of their money losing value every day because of inflation, it was, most days, actually gaining value. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice, and I'm not saying that you should move any or all of your money into crypto or anything like that. All I'm saying is that you need to do your own research, and I would suggest, and I am suggesting, that it would be prudent to have a wallet set up. Know how it works and how to use it, and get to know people who can buy and sell with you in crypto. Second, get and use a VPN. Again, I'm not going to tell you which one. I'm not going to try and get you to buy one with an affiliate code. That's not how I roll. But a VPN is a very important part of your digital arsenal. But a word of warning, they are useful. I would say they are vital. But they're not a magic bullet, and some people think that if they're using a VPN, then all of their problems online are solved, and that's not true. You will be able to do more with a VPN than you would be able to do without it, but governments are always looking for new ways to violate your rights, and a crackdown on VPNs is likely in the future. I'd also suggest that you look into a thing called Tails and the Onion Router. Learn how to access the so-called dark web. Yeah, there's lots of bad stuff on the dark web, of course there is. But there's also lots of people who just want to be able to trade freely and not have the watchful eye of government on them all the time. A good understanding of crypto, combined with access to the dark web using Tails and a VPN, will mean that you have way more options for how you can communicate, organise, and how you can do business, even if a digital curtain starts to come down around the UK or whichever country you live in. Finally, and honestly most importantly, get out there in the real world and make friends with like-minded people. Protests are a great opportunity to do this, by the way. Having a community of people that you already know and trust and know how to communicate securely with and know how to reach them when you need them is going to be vital over the next few years. If you want more specific advice around all of that, then I'd suggest watching my Getting Your Head in the Game masterclass, which I released last year. It's not specifically about this situation that we find ourselves in right now, but it's still going to be a very valuable resource for you. I cover key topics over 6 sessions totaling 12 hours of content, including focus and controlling where you spend your limited time, energy, money, and effort. I discuss in session 2 hope, a vital force that keeps us going, but also something that is easily manipulated and weaponized against us. In session 3, I cover courage, something that we're all going to need a lot of. Session 4 is about faith, not just religious faith, but faith in ourselves and each other. Then I cover community in session 5, how to build one, and what our community needs to have and to be in order to be effective and to help us through these times. And finally, in session 6, I get really specific with next steps. This is all about what I've touched on with digital freedom, but I also cover all sorts of areas like your personal situation at home, basics like food, water, communication, finances, and a whole lot more. It's an instant access course. Once you buy it, you'll get a link in an email and you can watch the whole thing immediately. So you'll find my Getting Your Head in the Game masterclass on my website, goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com, along with my books about civil disobedience, a topic that I think we should all be learning about right now, plus my DVD of Battleground Melbourne, which contains some valuable lessons for real-world modern civil disobedience, and you'll also find my t-shirts and hoodies as well. So, get set up for crypto transactions ASAP. Look into Tails, that's Tails. There's other options out there as well for accessing the Onion Router and using the dark web, Tor networks, all that, and accessing all of that. But Tails is the one that I'm most familiar with. Get a VPN if you don't have one already, and most importantly, build a community now. And yeah, check out my masterclass if you want to go deeper into all of this. This is it. This right here is the fight of our generation. We are not fighting a foreign power trying to invade us from the outside. We are fighting our own government trying to take the place of God in our lives. My name's Topher Field, and this is what I do, helping busy people like you to make sense of the nonsense that surrounds us and to know what to do about it. If you've appreciated this video, then I'd appreciate your support to help me keep the Topher project going by buying me a coffee via the button at topherfield.net or by grabbing my books, DVDs, t-shirts, hoodies, or perhaps most relevant to the topic at hand, getting my Getting Your Head in the Game masterclass from goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. Please leave a like, a comment, a follow. Remember to always think free. And in moments like these, we have to say, may God be with us all.